Alright, what's going on everyone? Today we're going to be looking at a budget standard deck. This is one of the cheapest decks you can build that's actually really competitive. The list we're going to be looking at went 8-0 at the Red Bull Untapped International Qualifier thing. 8-0 is pretty good. It's pretty good. And the deck is only $80 in paper, which is pretty cheap for a top tier competitive deck. But more importantly, it runs Sacred Foundries and Lurrus the Dream Den. So you could actually budgetize this a little bit and cut the deck price down by $60, which brings it down to about $20. So, yeah, obviously these are important for the tier 1 deck, but if you're playing casually, maybe you can get away without them. And without them, the deck's like $20 and it's an actual tier 1 deck. So which deck am I talking about? Well, you probably saw it in the title and whatnot. We're talking about Boros Cycling, or Jeskai Cycling, I guess, technically, but the idea here is very simple. We're just playing cycling stuff. One of the crazy things about Ikoria is it gave us a ton of cyclers for 1 mana. We have Go for Blood, Startling Development, Memory Leak, Frost Veil Ambush, Boon of the Wishgiver, and Footfall Craters. All of these have cycling for 1, which is insane. So the idea is we're just going to be cycling a ton, and the payoffs for doing so are Flourishing Fox, Draneth Stinger, and Valiant Rescuer. So the Fox is a 1 mana 1/1, but it'll get a +1/+1 counter every time we cycle, so that's pretty great. It will get very, very large. It also has cycling. All of these have cycling, by the way, so all of these can be cycled themselves in addition to being payoffs for cycling. But yeah, the Fox will get huge. The Stinger is a 2 mana 2/2 that will deal 1 damage to each opponent, and since all of our cycling costs 1, we can cycle a ton every game. It's very easy to cycle 10, 15, maybe 20 times per game, and Draneth Stinger, just 1 or 2 of them can easily just win the game by themselves. Valiant Rescuer will put a 1/1 human soldier token into play every turn. It can only do that once per turn. It's not every single time you cycle. It's the first time you cycle each turn, but you can do it once per turn. You can always save at least 1 cycler for your opponent's turn, so you can get 2, essentially 2 each turn. You get 1 your turn, 1 your opponent's turn, so you get 2 per turn cycle basically. As an added bonus, it will also play Draneth Healer, which is a 2 mana 2/2 that will gain you 1 life every time you cycle another card, and it has cycling itself again. This isn't as necessary. Gaining life doesn't win you games, and you can cycle this freely, but it is nice against like mono red aggro. It's nice against decks that are trying to burn you out, stuff like that. So it is useful. You can play this, but it still cycles for 1. Now the major payoff, and probably the reason this deck is so good, is Zenith Flare. It's a 4 mana instant that will do X damage to any target, and you will gain X life, where X is the number of cycling cards in your graveyard, which is your entire deck. And again, we're cycling for 1. So you cycle, you make a massive Fox, you make a bunch of tokens, you deal a bunch of damage, and then you can just play a big Zenith Flare and deal like 10, gain 10. I've actually domed people for 20, just a straight 20. My opponent was at their starting life total. They were playing tons of spot removal, and I just couldn't do anything, and then I Zenith Flared, just dealt 20 straight to the face, and won the game on the back of a single flare. It's insane. And the best part about this is because we're cycling so much, we will get these Zenith Flares a lot. Like, we will get multiples of them per game because we're cycling through our deck. We're getting through our deck like crazy. So we're just going to cycle, and eventually we'll hit this flare and just win the game. That's basically what happens. And then there's Lurrus, which, it's technically not 100% necessary. It's just playing Lurrus because all the permanents just so happen to cost 2 or less. It is really good. I'm not downplaying it. This is really good because you can recast your Fox, you can recast your Stingers, you can cycle your Fox and then play it with Lurrus. So definitely great, but you can cut it, and it does cut like $8 out of the budget. So that's an option, but I think it's worth it. Definitely, if you have it, play it. And if you don't, then consider working towards buying one or whatever, because it is pretty good. And the rest of the deck is just cyclers, and we can't play a lot of these. Startling Development, Frost Veil Ambush, Boon of the Wishgiver, all of these are blue. We don't have blue lands in the deck. We're not looking to play these. These are literally in purely for 1 mana cycling, and that's it. We 100% of the time cycle these because we can't cast them. The same is true with Memory Leak. It's a black card. We don't have black lands. We're not casting this. This is 1 mana cycling. That's all that matters. None of this text matters on any of these cards. Completely pointless. They're just cyclers. Same thing goes with Footfall Crater. You're pretty much never gonna play this. I mean, you technically can if it's gonna win you the game, but like you're not. You're gonna cycle it 99% of the time. And then Go for Blood is the most interesting because you can cast it and make a creature you control fight a creature you don't control, and that can actually win you the game. So you're still looking to cycle this most of the time. But if you have a couple of big foxes and you can blow up a blocker, there are times when you will cast this. I would say like maybe 1 out of 20 games you might cast this, or maybe more than that. But most of the time you're going to cycle it, but you do have the option of casting it. So because of that, I highly recommend cycling this last. Like if you have Go for Blood and a Memory Leak in hand, cycle the Memory Leak first because you never know, you might cast the Go for Blood. But generally speaking, you don't have to hold on to these, you're cycling them. And then the lands. This deck plays very few of them. It plays 9 plains, 5 mountains, and 4 Sacred Foundries. The Sacred Foundries are very expensive. They're $54 USD right now, which makes up more than half of the deck's price. Currently, with the list I'm looking at on the day I'm recording this, the deck's $80 and 54 of it is in 4 Sacred Foundries. Now on Magic Arena, that's not a big deal if you have them, if you have rare wild cards. But if you're playing in paper, you can replace these with Fabled Passages if you have them. You can replace them with tap lands. Tap lands aren't great, but you know, you can do that in the meantime until you get some of these if you want to. And then taking a look at the sideboard, just some pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. We have Grafdigger's Cage and Soul Guide Lantern for graveyards. We have Red Cap Melee for red decks. We have Apostle of Purifying Light and Devout Decree. We have Embereth Shieldbreaker, which can blow up artifacts. And we have Fry for blue and white decks. And then the 1 copy of Lurrus. And that is Boros Cycling or Jeskai Cycling, because it does technically have blue cards, but you're never going to cast them. So it's really Boros. It's Boros Cycling, but it does play blue cards. It plays black cards too. So I guess it's technically 4-color cycling, but it's Boros Cycling. That's the deck. This deck is winning major tournaments. It's doing really well, and it is very, very cheap. Without Sacred Foundries, this thing's like $20. And if you're playing on Arena, it's almost entirely commons and uncommons. There's 5 rares in the deck, 6 if you count the sideboard with Grafdigger's Cage, and those are Sacred Foundries and Lurrus. The rest of the entire deck is common and uncommon, so this is very easy to craft on Arena. On Magic Online, it is 20 tickets, and that's with 9 tickets in Sacred Foundry, so that brings the price down to 11. Lurrus is like 3.5 tickets, and then Grafdigger's Cage, that 1 single copy is 7 tickets. So without that, the deck's like literally 1 or 2 tickets, might be less than 1 ticket. Every single card in this deck is like 0.01 tickets, so it's 1 cent for just about every card in the entire deck. So you can literally build this deck for like less than $1 on Magic Online. On Arena, it's purely commons and uncommons, and in paper, it's anywhere from $20 to $80, depending on whether or not you want to play Sacred Foundries. So that's pretty good. So yeah, there you go, guys. If you want to build a very cheap competitive deck, if you want to have a chance of winning a Friday Night Magic with a very cheap deck, Boros Cycling right now is definitely the deck to go. And I'm not saying it's the best deck in the format. I'm not saying it's the cheapest deck in the format, but it is the perfect blend of very, very cheap, but also very powerful and very competitive. It's not often that a deck composed of like almost entirely commons and uncommons can have a legitimate chance of being competitive, but this deck does. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So there you go, guys. That's just a quick deck tech on what is right now the most powerful budget deck in Standard. And if you want to see this deck in action, I am going to play it on Magic Arena in the very next video on this channel, so look forward to that very soon. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.